review.
Oh, the book review. Okay, let's
Yeah,
do
right there.
the. That's right. Let's do the book review with our Miss Stacey Rance Gaines. Stacey, so good to see you. Always smiling and beautiful.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all too. Let's see. Okay. This week, we are going to be talking about chapter 11, 12, and 13. Chapter 11 is about how not to die from breast cancer. And it highlights that no woman ever wants to hear that they've been diagnosed with breast cancer. But the doctor tells us that once we detect breast cancer by either feeling in a lump on our breast, or either it's detected in our mammograms, he says and tells us, really just enlightens us, that modern imaging is great, but it does not detect the earliest stages. So he says that by the time that we learn that we have breast cancer, or an individual learns that they have it could have been there for decades. And that was really alarming for me, because I thought that, like most women, that once you learn that, then it might have just come over the last couple of years. But what we learn through reading more of this chapter is sometimes cancer is passed on from your, as we all know, genetics is passed on from the mom. So whatever her lifestyle, could have been, and her diet especially, could pass over to that child. So what they highlight in this chapter is that through autopsies, they were able to reveal how many women who have died from other causes through the autopsies realized that they had signs of cancer in their breasts that had been there, and in some cases for decades, with no detection, because they were able to look at their medical records and determine that it had not been diagnosed. So through that, like I said, they were looking at 20-year-olds all the way up into 50-year-olds. So we learned that that's one of the reasons why he says having a good diet at an early age, and especially when we're carrying babies, is so important. And the mother's diet is so important because it starts in the womb. And it's so true, as we learn, through these studies that he's pointing out about breast cancer. So then he says, what are some of the things that we can do to make sure we don't get it, which of course is a diet. And some of the things that he points out, which we've been talking about for the longest, is diets that revolve around whole plant foods, vegetables, of course, whole grains, fruits, beans. Those are things that can help with the risk of many cancers and other diseases. So then he also points out that strawberries, white mushrooms, we've heard this before, can potentially help with cancer promoting enzymes. Then he also suggests that exercise, and we might think, which I was interested in hearing this, that doing activities like cleaning your house, running errands, we might think that that's exercise, but he clearly points out that exercise needs to be at a moderate level. Aerobic exercise is good, but a brisk, a walk more than just a casual walk, but walking fast, and getting the heart rate up, and doing that, walking, an hour a day is suggested, can help lower breast cancer, your breast cancer risk. So then let's see, we then here we go again, we talk about cholesterol. And one of the things that they point out is that when you have those higher levels of cholesterol, you're put on medicines such as statins. And statins over time increase our risk for breast cancer. So, we think we're helping one issue, which is cholesterol, but then we're causing, as many of us already know, other issues with taking medicine. So he reminds us that, learning that, you may get put on these medicines, but it's best to choose a healthier diet and a lifestyle to get off of those, because studies have shown, and especially experimental studies have shown that that the one way to cut down on your increased risk of cancer is to also watch your risk for heart disease. So all of these diseases go, closely together. Then that chapter was so great, and there's so much to learn from that chapter. So the next chapter is how not to die from suicidal depression. And one good way that this author helps engage us more by telling us stories. And so one, he told us about Margaret, how Margaret had sent him a powerful email that she was clinically depressed, and diagnosed as a clinical depressed patient as early as 10 years old. And she said she spent all of her teenage and 20s being depressed, and or taking medications for depression. And so she pointed out that she was also contemplating suicide. The thoughts were in her head about suicide, and so she also was taking medicines to help with that, and those medicines were horrible. As we all know that medicines can cause nausea, headaches, dreams, frightening dreams, all kind of issues, and you're just trying to help this one issue that will that you're trying to save your life, but then you're causing a whole nother set of issues. So what was really great for her is that she listened to this author at a church, and when she heard his speech, it prompted her to go ahead and talk to her psychiatrist. She didn't make the decision on her own. She talked to her psychiatrist and got the help to get off her medicine. And with that, she turned her whole life around. She had been married, divorced, had gone through a whole slew of things, but because she, took a lot of what the author had to say and worked with her doctor, she told her doctor that she wanted to get off her meds and start, leading a healthier life, because she just never realized that food was what was not helping her get better, and that she could get better. She just had to, learn that food and, the way she ate and her exercise and all kinds of things would help her, be successful getting off her medicine. And that is what she did. So she definitely, gives thanks to the doctor for changing her life, because she says changing her diet has made her a whole new person. And she said that she owed him her life. So one of the things that I thought was also important in this chapter is that they mentioned how spice, is so important. And not just, spice itself, but saffron has been a spice that has helped with moods. And that is one of the spices that has been, implemented into people's diets to help with that. But unfortunately, it's so expensive. And so people would be able to afford medicines, the regular medicines that they go to, being prescribed, rather than using saffron. But they were saying that saffron is found out in fields, but it's made from a crocus flower, and it's like a flower, thread-like tips on the flower, but it is used to be grounded and made up as a spice. And they were just saying that it can cover a whole football field, but it is so expensive just to produce a single pound of saffron. And so anyway, they were just saying how that's just one way that people have used spice to help with their mood and help with depression. And another lady in this chapter was highlighted because she stopped eating animal products, and of course other junk foods, and that helped her with a whole slew of issue, less painful bowel movements. She got energy. She wasn't depressed anymore. So healthy diet in chapter 12 helps with depression. And the last chapter that I'm going to leave you with is the prostate cancer. And prostate cancer has become in the US a horrible disease that most men, half of the men in their 50s, if they don't develop some issues in their 50s, all the way up into their 80s, they get diagnosed with prostate cancer or some form of prostate issue. And one of them is what they refer to as BPH, and that's basically an enlarged prostate. And so what they were telling us is that of course, starting to have a cleaner diet, but also watching the milk intake, because milk intake and meat make your higher levels of IGF. And IGF is just really a hormone, and hormones that are used for, that are in our bodies as kids, and is good for growth. But as we start to get older, that should shut off. And when you're still having that growth in our body of hormones, it causes a lot of issues. It causes cells to grow that can be cancerous. So that's why they say that there are things that we can do in our diet. And one of the things that that a study showed was that 3 tablespoons of flaxseed in your diet every day has helped some men reduce levels of their PSA. So talking to men and talking to all of your males that are your family and friends, and having them understand that having a whole food diet is going to last them into their, all up into their adulthood and into their older ages, because you're as young as you feel, and as young as you're doing things. So I don't want to say until you old, because I old is just a number. So saying old, but what I want to stress is that to get to that age and to be healthy, you need to have a good balanced diet, because that will help with that prostate issue. And that will be the end of my review for these 3 chapters. They're great chapters, and I've just learned so much, and I'm fortunate to have read these chapters, because I think the book just keeps getting better and better.